because I was a friend of all the new realist group, and like Daniel Sper with a group of Flux, so they were all my friends. So I decided she gave me the space where to do the instruction, to get the instruction. And then she said, why is it to get all those mattresses from the hospital all dirty and it takes you such a long time to clean it and to work on? You do your mattresses. And then I decided to buy the fabric, paint it, put it inside, sew it, and then I stopped, like I say, for 40 years.
Welcome to Future Dialogues, a series of conversations between artists and creatives, organized and hosted by Curi Mansuto and supported by Casa Dragones. The first series of conversations took place in the gallery in New York between March 2023 and May 2024. Today we present the last episode of the first season of Future Dialogues. In this conversation between Marta Minujín and Darsie Alexander, they discuss Minujín's multifaceted career spanning 6 decades and focus on her informalist period from the late 1950s, as well as her transition into multicolored mattress sculptures. They met on the occasion of Minujín's solo exhibition, Making a Presence, in May 2024. Marta Minujín is a pioneer in transforming passive viewers into active participants through happenings, participatory environments, and mass media art. She embraced the international art movement that rejected traditional artistic conventions in favor of abstraction and spontaneity. Minujín's diverse use of materials, media, and technology are examples of the boundless possibilities she finds in art. Our guest, Darsie Alexander, was the curator of the influential solo exhibition Marta Minujín, Arte, Arte, Arte at the Jewish Museum in 2023, where she's the senior deputy director and chief curator since 2018. Previously, she also served as executive director of the Katonah Museum of Art, chief curator at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, senior curator at the Baltimore Museum of Art, and assistant curator at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. So let's listen.
Thank you very much, and thanks so much to the gallery for hosting this event this evening. It's great to see you, Marta. You look fabulous, as always. You look perfect in your jumpsuit with this amazing backdrop. And I love the fact that you have in this exhibition, and I want to talk a little bit about your trajectory, because a lot of people know you for this type of work, these large-scale, very bright mattress pieces. But you really started in a very different place. And in the back section of the gallery along the orange walls are really your earliest pieces, and they're so different. They're part of informalism, which was a movement sort of similar in some ways to New Realism in Europe, like this attraction, this very gritty, earthy, urban, dark palette. And then the jump to this. And I'm just wondering, just for starters, okay, you started off, you were such a prodigy as a young woman, and you were so inventive from the very beginning of your career. What inspired this work that we're seeing in the back part of the gallery? It's so different from where you landed. What were you thinking?
What happened at this moment, few people in the world decide to broke completely with color and broke with painting. I was really seeing that I was a good painter, and I broke completely like this, not more paintings. And also I was against art galleries. I was all the time, like, during 10 days saying that to the museum, then to the selling, like to sell a work of art. So that's why I live like until, I don't know, until in 41 I sold my first piece, and before I live on grants. That was also a work, how to live in Paris with grants, how to live in New York with many, many grants, many, many years. So the work that I've done, that was mostly for myself, because I vomit that came into my head, and I was working for something like near to the land, like what is the land? How do you say tierra? Land. Okay. So I was working with those colors, And also my life was very trashy because some success had happened. So I was working almost 24 hours a day, a week, on canvases, on the floor, and all the work I will send it to the national salons, thinking, well, maybe I will get a prize. I was not accepted, and I abandoned them. So most of those work, they were abandoned, and then some people find it, and some of them are here. Some of them are from my studio later on, when I start putting some cardboard. It was more formal, because before I would do it like almost on the line, and I destroy it, I take another piece of fabric, and I put laca la piroxilina, I put some colors, carbon, I don't know, I don't remember.
So you were using very rough found materials.
Yeah.
You were that were disposable and you could easily find that were cheap.
It was very interesting because once, since I was 12, 13, I was going to all the competition art and in the air, just painting like this, and I was getting all the prizes. Like Julio Lepar will go, and that's the same. We all did, thinking that we're going to get some money from those competitions. But then, one day I was in the river, in a planta called La Boca, and I was with the carbon, I made a fire, and I was making heat to do the cola de carpintero, only the same way. And then come Jorge Romero Press, that was for me, the best art critic that I ever know, like a critic. Before that we were critics, so he was one of the best. And he gave me the first prize to go to Paris. So during I was getting that prize, I decided one day I was doing all those things, all the cartoons, and then I didn't like more to have to work like recent geometrical, like they are in the kind of electric. So one day I took my mattress of my bed, put it there, and since then working my clothes and then working on.
Okay, so let's
go back.
there's a lot to unpack there. Okay, so just going back. So you were creating these works, but when you were narrating the history of these works, you also talked a lot about performance. Like you were really doing, from the very beginning of your career, you were doing these performances, so they weren't necessarily isolated objects, but they were often incorporated into performance settings, like you did that newspaper piece in the river very early on in your
That
career.
was later, before I got the destruction, because even those was a kind of destructive art, because while I was doing, I was destroying the world in Argentina. Then I did this with cartoon and wood, and then went to Paris already working with mattresses. And then this performance was done when I came back in 1964 or 63, and I went to the river with all the newspapers, and I was reading that, and then I went into the river with all the paper around. So it was an action, informalist action.
Okay, so we'll get back to that because it's also about media. Even at that early stage, you were paying attention to newspapers and media. But okay, so when you went to Paris, so you got this award, you went to Paris in 1963, staged this happening, which was called the Destruction Happening. Talk a little bit about that, because it's not only a turning point in your career, but it's really seen as a pivotal moment in art of that generation.
People were doing the culture because
So tell us.
Yeah, I was invited to London one time with the people who destroy everyone. But no, what happened then, I was living in Paris, I didn't know where to put all my work, so I decided to invite 10 artists to create my work on the top of myself. So that's why there is one pop artist, one action painting, one like a poet, Cristo, rapping, and then I got somebody who came with the like
an axe.
And then I put fires, I throw birds on the air and rabbits, because I always saw the rabbits like small mattresses. That's why I use the rabbits in many of my work.
And birds and mattresses are an ongoing theme that definitely deserve deeper critical evaluation. But let's get back for a minute to the happening itself. So you staged this happening in which you destroyed all of your works. I mean, it really was.
I love happenings more than performance, even now. But
what's the difference between happenings and
what
performance for you?
it happened in a very short time, like in 8 minutes, many instantaneous things that nobody knows how the people are going to react. So you surround the people, and the people became like totally involved. They don't know where to go. It's like attack to senses and to emotion to the people. In 8 minutes, 10 minutes, they will never forget it. A performance is something that you rehearse. You have people to do the same. Happening is only one time, or each happening. So that moment I did many happenings, like 3 countries. Alan Capro exists also, doing happenings in California. And I met them in New York. Wolf Hotel, who was doing, because art always has movements, like pop, and I believe the 60s was one of the fantastic times that everything happened in the action painting, video art, pop art, hyperrealismo, conceptual art, movie art, everything happened in that decade. And now, like, all influence are still
they're still reverberating, yeah. I mean, when you describe that happening, the destruction that you did in Paris, that piece, that happening, it also made me think of these other, happenings that you did where the audience would be completely disarmed. For instance, there was one piece that you did in 65 where you flew a helicopter over a football stadium and you dropped chickens, heads of lettuce,
on the
flour on the people down below. Or another time when you brought a horse onto a sound stage for like a morning talk show. And had the tail was painted. I mean, so you've always loved these moments of like unexpected encounters where you kind of are throwing your audience off kilter a little bit. What is it about that experience? Like, you've talked about this desire in all of your work to sort of intensify.
Yeah, intensify life.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yes. With art, I wanted to create one art that people began to be part of my work. Well, in the happenings, I took them for surprise, but now I plan it. Like when I do the partner of book, I always think that the people will take one book home, they will disassemble my work, they will work in the 4th stage, and then they will read it, and the last one in the documental, they got the mail, every person put a mail, so after the documental, many years, the people still write each other's about the book they were reading, or they exchange the book. So when I did edible artworks, like the panettone obelisk, or the Shamsoy covered in bread, it's even more, because people grab the food, or the one in Mar del Plata,
It's the interactive part.
Yeah.
So going.
They are part, they finish my work. If I say now, everyone here can take a part of this work. Has 70 works, so 70 persons can take one. But the gallery will not like that.
Just to be clear. Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed to this piece and some of the other mattress pieces around the room, because it's when you're experiencing these objects, they look so very different, but they come out of the same path. So a lot of these early mattress works, which were developed in Argentina and then in Paris in the early 60s, were also interactive. And so talk about what the qualities were of the mattress, the human qualities of the mattress.
Well, because they spend 50% of our life is spent in the mattresses. So we are born, we make love, we can even get killed on the mattress. That's why I did yes, it's true. I did soft gallery. I took a hotel, was closed in Washington, DC, when I live in Washington, because they were 3 deaths in one night. So I don't know how we convinced the guard of this hotel why it was closed. Everybody disappeared from the hotel because they were prostitutes downstairs. One hotel taken by the people, the best hotel, Washington, I don't remember what. And then we took, with a friend of mine, 200 mattresses from the hotel. We threw them from the roof, all of the mattresses, even the one with blood, and we did a soft gallery. And then I invite people who are doing happening to make it happening in the show gallery. So the gallery, then it was disassembled. So I like this experience of life. The people enter, jump in the show gallery. They can see the bed with blood of some of the murder.
Did you save any of those men?
Yeah. One of the exhibitions was to have one bed with blood that somebody was killed. So,
But at a certain point, you decided to jettison the salvaged, filthy mattresses and actually start building your own mattresses and painting them yourself.
Yeah,
So,
then abandoned the mattresses 40 years, and I came back in 2004.
I know, but you had a period earlier on when you were also experimenting with color. I mean, some of those early mattresses, and I know you destroyed some of those too, but they were red and green, they were striped.
When I started doing that, because something that happened is very long to see, that I saw some closets with fluor, and since then I decided to make my own mattresses, and I wasn't. Well, Nick de Sanfar invited me to the Ronsard to make the destruction. So, because I was a friend of all the new realism, new realism. Like Daniel Sper with a group of Fluxos, they were all my friends. So I decided she gave me the space where to do the destruction, to get the destruction. And then she said, why is it to get all those mattresses from the hospital all dirty and it takes you such a long time to clean it and to work on? You do your mattresses. And then I decided to buy the fabric, paint it, put it inside, sew it, and then I stopped, like I say, for 40 years.
Well, but just to note, the color just electrifies your work. I mean, it is, at some moment you hit on that color and you just took possession of the stripe. I mean, when I first looked at your work, I thought about, all the male artists that have used the stripe, like Stella and others, and just how the way you paint and the way you use the soft fabric of the mattress to create these curvy forms and these twisted geometries. So when you switched over to color, you've often talked about this moment.
Yeah.
When
you can say it, because
I'm not going to say it.
I don't say it.
When you were coming back, it's such a great story from
I
Venice.
say it many times.
We'll say it again. Go on.
I went to the Vienna, 1964. I went to Venice because Julio Lepar got the first prize. So we all Argentinians met together, we living in Paris, and I didn't have a visa to come back into Paris. So they stopped the train, I went down, and I went to live in a religious place until they gave me the visa to come back into Paris. And then I saw suddenly some skirt fluo, because it was the time of Marie Quant, with the mini skirt fluo, and I decided to do everything fluo. That's why. She wanted to tell me how many times. Yes.
Okay, there are a few stories that I could say myself verbatim, but that's a great
many
story
stories.
because it was you also talk about that was a moment when you went pop, like you went.
I went pop.
You went pop, which I did a show years ago called International Pop, and it was sort of about the ways in which
1963, I became pop.
you became pop, but pop was not about the deployment of commercial images. It was about color. It was about energy. And that's what I think is so interesting about your work, because even though you're part of these different so-called movements like happenings, performance, and pop, you always have an angle and you do it in so much of your own way. So pop is really about a spirit.
Yeah, like the Patacas with pop, Venezuela pop.
Okay, so let's switch over and talk about the installations, because some people here may have seen the new museum show several years ago when
New museum,
the
1969.
well, there was
19, now, 2000.
it was
1000.
18, 19, somewhere in there that you,
1917.
it was pre-COVID. I do know that much. So you did this
No,
in
19.
19. Okay.
Just 3 years ago in the museum. Yeah.
So some of you may have seen that installation, and it was really when you did it at Titella, right, you said you had people streaming out the door. No one had ever seen anything like that before. So how did you go from the idea of making these single objects and having these happenings to these huge, ambitious constructions where you were having all of this labyrinth that people would go through?
Was but to live, the people will take the decision going in to live in a labyrinth. In order to take them by surprise, they select, they choose to go inside something like a labyrinth with sensation, and that you are the happening person. Like each person was a happening because they had to adapt to the difficult situation that was going through Venezuela. In 1965 was very, very unusual to do something, a work of art that you had to go inside and spend 20 minutes, 25 minutes inside, living different situations. That was really like the mirror of the city of Buenos Aires. I wanted to represent how was Buenos Aires, but through an eye, artist's eye.
So that's a perfect segue to what was Buenos Aires like during this period of time? Because there was a thriving...
Like here, Times Square was...
Like Times Square?
Yeah, like Times Square, many situations...
But there was no formal art market like there is.
Like New York now, that you go some places on New York, and there is we did that moment with a friend of mine, we did it together, was to recuperate, take the city, transform it, and the people will go to this city of the mind, of the senses, of the attitude, physical changes, like walking soft, walking hard, go inside, have a telephone, so. And then I invented the telephone.
And then, so I'm glad you mentioned the telephone, because one of the things that I wanted to get to is your incredible work with technology.
Yeah.
And really, it's a part of your work that many people don't have the opportunity to see, because with technology, it's ephemeral, it's installation band. So you were on to TV sets and neon lights and cameras and all of that very early on.
Exactly.
Sorry, say that again? And the
everywhere that we can communicate the three countries.
Yes, the three country happening. So can you talk about how technology fit into those early installations, and then?
I don't know, because one artist is very sensible. So with the apparition of the television, with the TV up here, the reaction was all over. And then was the first time that the communication was not usual. Like you had to dial a phone and wait until the people answer, and you were, I don't know, you can die talking by phone, and everything. Like the society changed very much in 1960. Everything, all the change went. So I decided to create a communication and to know. That's why I became a friend of Andy Warhol, because I was interested how the media and also the famous people, because the famous people, their face became part of the media. So I select 60 persons, very famous person, to come into Instituto de Tela, because their faces were reproduced more on the media. The people will see them on television, will see them. So inside that room, the people could see themselves. I got closer to TV, and also the TV channel mixed. And we talk by all media with camera motel, the three of us, using the early bird, that I don't know how motel find that. And we got that contact that we communicate through telegram,
right,
through radio, through
multi-channel, and that was simultaneity to simultaneity. So the idea being that you identified all of these celebrities and big personalities, you invited them into a gathering, you filmed them, you documented them, you video recorded them, and then invited them back 10 days later in the same outfits where their visage would be reprojected back into the space in which they'd been seen originally. So it's brilliant, it's a brilliant move, but I want to flip this around onto you, because one of the things that I think is so brilliant about your work is that it's not just about the way that you create objects, it's how you disseminate your art and yourself. So from a very early age, you were extremely aware of the camera. You stood before the camera all the time. You were incredibly photogenic. There is a vast trove of amazing images from you from the early 60s up to the present day. And even the way that you engage with social media, like part of what your art is the persona that you have created and sent out over all of these different distribution networks. People know you and they know your work, but they're indistinguishable. And I just want to ask you, like, at what moment did you recognize? Was it like the sense that, oh, like maybe there's not really a market here and I just have to push myself out? Was it like the sense of having to promote yourself as this young woman? Or what drove that awareness in you of how you would use the camera to spread knowledge about you and your practice?
I think that is very natural. You got that inside. Since the moment I was born, that I made millions of friends. Very easy in the same moment. Instant love with people. And mostly with people that they are not such intellectual, like with simple people. It's a very big love. I don't know why, but that happened.
And that maybe can help us jump to New York because you...
Well, that's not working with like a rock musician because I became here much more many friends of musicians than friends with artists. Well, I was also with the pop. They were very similar to myself, to the pop artists. They were very charismatic and very friendly. They are not like before the artist that is alone, doesn't communicate with them. So we were all like a party, like living in a party.
Right.
Pop art was that.
Yeah, it was a very social milieu, for sure. So when you got to New York in I guess I'm thinking now about the late 60s, early 70s, you were kind of a hippie. You were a hippie, and you were living in Central Park.
3 or 5 years.
Well, okay, all right. So you were living in Central Park. I know you just had your picture taken with your 2 grandsons under the tree where you apparently lived for
I live in a
time.
time.
Can you talk about the New York hippie years and kind
I
of...
cannot talk about that. I want to get tired. You talk. You tell everything. You say things about me. I prefer. You know everything. I know Darsie 3 years ago and she... It's your moment. To speak up. I want to listen.
No, I'm too well trained to ever not point the light onto the artist. So I'm gonna punt it back to you.
Relax that moment. Talk about me.
Okay, I'm gonna say a few things about you. I'm gonna say some things about Marta that I didn't know about you, I guess. I love the story of your family, and part of doing this project was getting to know you, but knowing your family. So you live and you work in the home, really in the house where your family grew up, where there was a family business. And the way that Marta's studio is set up, the first floor, there's sort of a courtyard, and there's a space where you work. And then upstairs, there's really the remnants of your family, and like taxidermied animals.
Yeah, you were looking everything.
I mean, I was really snooping around. And you were at a couple of moments just, don't go, please. But you had a very close relationship to your father. And I can't help but say, there's this amazing picture of the 2 of you where he's a very handsome man, and he's walking down the street in Buenos Aires, and he's wearing a pinstripe suit. And I think, it's all about biography, like so much about that imagery of the pinstripe and clothes. Your family was involved in making clothes, and clothes are so much a part of who you are. And the stripe, which is such a masculine image, is something that you adopted into your own visual language. So I think just like seeing where you work and learning about your family really helped me understand, I think, more on a psychological level. Even things I wouldn't necessarily write about in the book, but that there's a connection there with something that's a part of your past and your husband's. And, the partnership that you had for so many years. Can you talk about that?
No.
I know I'm grabbing it. I'm grabbing for straws. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about sex. So I do think it's not something that I didn't talk about this in our conversation at the Jewish Museum. But you have dealt with sex at different times, and I'm not just talking about like the sex paintings, the so-called frozen sex paintings. Will you talk about those? Can you say a few words about those paintings, the frozen sex paintings?
I don't know. I stopped doing perform like in the 70s, like after the technology moment that I got very many like spontaneity, Minujín, always made the people create, like a Minujín was very interesting because I did just 4 cocktail parties with economists, artists, politicians, and people from the world of fashion. And they came every day, and I filmed them from cameras, and what they were in the cocktail, and they didn't even realize that they didn't care. They saw them were filmed, but they didn't care. So all those years I went, but immediately I was shocked by the hippie because was the Vietnam War. Was impossible to live in New York without, at that moment, being a hippie in the United States, in America. So simultaneously in France with the student was going on, the university was going there, May 68. So we were shocked by society, how it was so cruel. So the hippie appeared, and I appeared with them, and I lived 3, 4, 5 years. Then I stopped suddenly, and I came back to painting. Like I went to live in Washington. I was very impressed for 14th Street, where the people went there to look for sexual actions. It's a real format going into them. Like here, Times Square was only porno shops, movie, underground movie, people who live. So the energy of sex interested me. So I decided to paint 16 paintings, red, came back to painting, and to create something like called frozen food. You have it painted on the wall, like frozen, very cold, and suddenly when you live with it, it melts. So you become erotic. So it's a creation, the erotic, that maybe Shorbatai talk about that, Maratusale talk about that, is the energy of the sex energy. So I try to capture that, and when I do that, and then I stop. So 3, 4 years, the people love so much, but for me was enough.
Well, I think I haven't gotten a signal yet, but I think maybe we can pause and turn our attention out to the audience because I think I have plenty more questions, but we have a really packed house.
Now you should play question to Darsie. That's what she Yeah. Now Darsie answer. Yes.
So I wanted to know if you plan on doing like a La Venezuela again in New York because I missed it when it was here in 2018, and I'd love to stay here in New York again.
Are you going to do Minnesota here again in New York anytime
No,
soon?
now it's going to go to Europe, Dinamarca, Copenhagen, October 10, this year open, and then go to Reina Sofia next April, then go to Pompidou in Brussels, and then finish in Liverpool, so you can all go to.
Tell about the Statue of Liberty idea, because maybe there's a funder out here.
When I try to do that, my next project is to like what's happened with immigration and everything. One of my first projects was to lie down the Liberty exactly 50 meters, but covered with, first of all, I was thinking real hamburger, but now it's impossible, so with fake hamburgers, show it there, people can walk through, or you can see it, people see the hamburger made with, it's the Statue of Liberty covered with the food, popular food from each country. So I create many projects, also like the Tour Eiffel, baguette. I didn't do it, but it's one of the projects. Then the obelisk on Panettone with Argentina in Panettone. So here will be the Statue of Liberty covered with many, like 50,000 fake hamburgers made in plastic, and the people will observe it like 1 month, and then they will take the hamburgers and exchange them for true ones. Like eating their own food. Americans will eat, and
Consumerism.
we'll take conscious of what they eat. That will be hamburgers.
We didn't even talk about all the public monuments, and just really super briefly, but in the late 70s, you started,
Yeah.
you started to really think about the meaning.
First for the liberty. First I wanted to do the liberty that I never did it again. Hope my next project in New York is this. The Statue of Liberty lying down covered with hamburgers.
Okay, that's it. That is the next project. We will be sending out solicitations to the audience. But anyway, no, it's just to recognize. And you had that big piece in Times Square last fall, back in November.
Yeah, now I start doing inflatable sculpture in the sense because I don't like perpendicular or horizontal. I like round things. So I think in Times Square, one of the places that I consider the Museum of Pop more alive still. And I did a second inflatable sculpture, and now I'm going to do like 4 or 5 more. Like this one could be inflatable sculpture. So you send to a country, I don't need to go, and you have to work there. And it's not so expensive like the 1 million euros that costs Parthenon. Well, we say goodbye.
I was just getting you to start talking. Let's have one more question. One more.
Okay.
One more.
Is somebody right? Yes. Who wants?
Okay, maybe your audience is going to let you off the hook. Marta, thank you so much for this.
Thank you for listening to Future Dialogues.